Alliance Française of Washington, D.C. kicks off classes July 7th, every level, beginning to advanced. Not sure yet? Try a free Zoom trial class the week of June 22nd. Register before June 18th and save with their early bird discount. Visit francedc.org to sign up or become a member today, because why not spend your summer sounding a little more Parisian? Today on CityCast DC, our city is facing a double-barreled housing crisis where nothing is getting built. No one's building regular houses and apartments because of the grim DMV economy, and no one is building subsidized, quote-unquote, affordable housing because epidemic rent non-payment makes builders think they'll never break even. In a city where housing is still super expensive, this adds up to a big problem. Emilia Calma is the author of a new report on this for the Brookings DMV Monitor, and she's here to explain. Today is Monday, June 15th. I'm Michael Schaefer. Here's what DC's talking about. Hey, Emilia, welcome back.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
So you worked on the most recent DMV Monitor. It's all about housing. And the top line takeaway is rents are falling, like quite significantly. A lot of people in a really expensive city might look at that and say it's a good thing. Is it?
Well, in the short term for individuals, I think a lot of renters will feel relief from this. But I think in the long term, this could be really dangerous. Obviously, if you're signing a lease right now, you're in a better position than you were a year ago. But this has long-term consequences that could lead to worse affordability over time. Because when demands go down, a few people are competing to be here, and this can actually lead to a deflationary spiral. It's what happened in Japan, China, and a few Rust Belt cities. When demand goes down, investment and production go down, jobs then go down, demand goes down further, and we spiral out in a bad way.
So for housing, I think what you're saying is when rents are going down, that means fewer people are like really bucking to find a place to live. And that means people aren't going to build new things, which means apartments are scarce. And in the long run, that's not good for being able to afford it. Is that what you mean?
Exactly. So right now, looking at what's being permitted for what's going to be built in the next few years, we are seeing the fewest permits than we've seen since 1998. And part of the affordability problem that we have right now is because we built almost nothing between the 70s and about 2005. So we really need to be building, and that's, their future naturally affordable housing.
So, yeah, I call it the crane drain.
Totally.
So DC had famously not much got built from the 70s to the 90s. People look back at that and say it was because of the regulation of the market, because you weren't allowed to build a lot of stuff in a lot of places. We need to loosen those rules. That's been a lot of people's push in politics. But I think what you're saying is that the current crane drain has very little to do with that and more to do with just old-fashioned supply and demand.
I think there's a few things going on right now. One is definitely supply and demand. There was definitely a shock from Trump's second term here with the federal job losses, contractor uncertainty, that's seen rents go down, particularly in the district, an extra over 4% in the last year.
People are losing jobs. They're leaving, presumably, or not looking for houses.
Exactly. And then interest rates are higher and construction rates are high. So that's what's happened with a lot of the market rate units, and why people aren't building. And then affordable housing has a completely different problem.
Night at the Museum is real this weekend at the Smithsonian's National Museum of the American Indian. From Friday, June 19th through Sunday the 21st, the museum is staying open late with free extended evening hours Friday and Sunday. There is so much happening. Curator tours, hands-on activities, and live performances all weekend long. Friday night, Grammy-nominated Hawaiian artist Amy Hanaiali'i takes the stage. Saturday, DJ Shub brings his award-winning Powwow Step dance party. And Sunday, the museum's own executive chef demonstrates traditional indigenous recipes using corn. Oh, and there is a giant plush llama named Andy that you can take a selfie with Friday and Saturday night. I've actually met Andy. He is adorable. And honestly, I feel like that should be reason enough for you to go. And the best part is, the entire weekend is free. For the full schedule of events, head to americanindian.si.edu. That's americanindian.si.edu, and I will see you there. I have a bit of good news to share from our sponsors at the DC Department of Behavioral Health. And that is that DC is turning a corner, and the numbers back it up. Fatal opioid overdose dropped 33% in this city from 2023 to 2024. Now, that is not just data. That's real people and real families that are still together. But listen, the work isn't done, and neither are we. If you or someone that you love is struggling, help is closer than you think. Text Live Long DC to 888-811 to connect with treatment, housing, and recovery support right here in the district. Free Narcan is available at nearly 40 locations across DC because nobody should lose someone for lack of access. And if you're in crisis right now, call or text 988. Know your worth, know your alternatives, know your value, know yourself. Recovery is possible. Find out how at knowyourpathdc.com.
Don't miss Folger Theater's How Shakespeare Saved My Life, playing now through July 5th at the Folger Shakespeare Library. This autobiographical solo comedy by Broadway star Jacob Ming Trent has been called a vivid, deeply personal narrative about survival, resilience, and the transformative power of language by stage and cinema. Born with a gift for poetry but rejected as unfit to play the part of the poet, Ming Trent invites us to take a deep dive into the crevices of his youth. Calling on the bard and a host of genius rappers, half-crazed preachers, and soulful poets, he takes us on a propulsive ride that reaffirms the power of language and music. Tickets start at $20 and can be purchased online at folger.edu or by phone at 202-544-7077, Tuesday through Sunday, 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. Get yours today.
So this is what one of the writers for Greater Washington called the sort of twin crises, where you've got, on the one hand, the sort of people lose jobs, the age of Doge crisis that is making it so no one wants to build market rate housing. And then this other situation where a lot of quote unquote affordable housing developers, that is like subsidized housing, are underwater because they say people are not paying rent, and that screws up their ability to make a profit while operating these buildings.
Exactly. You have this massive increase in unpaid rent in affordable units due to a lot of pandemic-era policies, such as the eviction moratorium and emergency rental assistance and the automatic stays on eviction from that.
They've gotten rid of a lot of those policies, though.
Well, we're still doing a lot of them. A lot of the same issues persist. It still takes much longer than usual to process an eviction. A lot of these cases are going to trial, which didn't used to happen. People used to sell out of court much more frequently. And if you look at a lot of these properties that used to perform really well, take the low-income housing tax credit properties, DC is performing worst in the nation by a long shot. And on average, these properties have negative cash flow, so we're actually losing money.
So we are, as you may have heard, in the middle of a mayor's race. And we've got candidates sort of dueling over who is going to build the most housing. And they're promising numbers. Janice Lewis George wants to build 72,000 units. Kenny McDuffie wants to build 12,000 units. But are either of those numbers possible? I mean, ultimately, unless the government becomes the builder, these are built by companies, and the companies have to sort of see a path to making money.
Absolutely. And for the government to become the builder, it has to have a significant amount of capital. So that's a question, too, about budgetary concern. But I think what we're seeing right now is that except for what's in the current pipeline, we're not really seeing anything on the horizon, just in terms of the housing permits, again. And I think there are several things that the city could be doing to help increase that. But we're certainly not going to get anywhere towards 72,000 in the last 5 years. For context, that's approximately what we built in the last 20 years during our construction boom.
What data sets did you guys use to create this report?
We were using Zillow data, and so Zillow calculates asking rents. So essentially, like what the rent is when someone signs up for a lease. It might not necessarily match up with what they're paying over time, especially in rent-controlled units or people who've been in units a really long time, but it at least calculates the initial rent.
So you mentioned there's things that the city could do. What are those things?
We could make it easier to build housing across the city. This could include missing middle housing like condos, duplexes, townhomes. And that can be done through a variety of means, including reforming our zoning code, but also reducing other restrictions on housing like height requirements or parking minimums, or some of the environmental or labor requirements that we've imposed on housing.
If I can push back on that a little bit, that's the same set of things people have been talking about for years, right? That DC makes it too hard, too expensive to build. But it sounds like the genesis of this kind of current moment that you're talking about with falling rents and the danger of a deflationary spiral is very different than just, hey, this is a city with like complicated and annoying zoning codes.
Absolutely. But when, demand was really strong and rents were increasing, a lot of these issues that made it more expensive to build here were able to be absorbed into people's budgets, and people were able to build despite that. And I think now that those macroeconomic conditions have changed, we have to take another look at what's making our housing so much more expensive here in the district and see if we can bring that down. And that should increase more housing at the margins.
How much more expensive is it to build here in the district than in another American city?
I've seen some estimates of building in DC versus building in, say, Arlington. And I don't remember the exact numbers right now, but it was significantly more expensive to build in DC than even just across the river.
So talk to me for a second about the suburbs, because you saw different dynamics at play there.
Yeah, so what we saw literally looked like a donut on the map. There's a geographic split between where rents were increasing in the outer counties, especially Spotsylvania, Prince William, Loudoun, and Frederick. And then rents are falling in DC in the inner counties, including Arlington, Alexandria, Montgomery, and Prince George. So just to give you some real numbers, rents in Spotsylvania increased by 13% between 2019 and now, and rents in DC fell by about 11%.
So what does that mean? Like, why is that dynamic happening? Is it that DC has more federal workers and they are affected by the dislocations? But it sounds to me like this dates back to before Doge.
Essentially, there were two disruptions. So first was the pandemic, where a lot of people moved out of DC. We had a really high rates of remote work, and people often moved to lower cost areas, especially where they could have more space. And then kind of just as the market was stabilizing, it was 2025, with all the federal workforce reductions and contractor uncertainty. And that saw an additional over 4% reduction in DC, the scale and pace of which was about comparable to the first year of the pandemic.
But it seems to me like the other answer here is just get back to a situation where DC is a really attractive place to move to. And that means, return to a situation where there's a lot of jobs that need bodies in DC. And that is it's ultimately like it's a housing thing, but it's so much bigger than housing.
I think it's bigger than housing, but housing definitely contributes. People obviously traditionally have moved here for jobs, and then often left to find bigger housing. But I think if you had, more housing options in DC at a variety of price points, it would become a much more attractive city for people to move to. And in that way, housing does become like an economic driver for the city.
Give me your feelings about the mayor's race. I don't mean who you want to win, but I mean, you study housing and city economic development, and they've been talking a lot about it. Are they talking about the things that are actually difference makers? Like, grade the level of conversation we've witnessed.
I think everybody agrees that housing is unaffordable and that we need to build more. I think we could still be drilling down on a lot of the specifics on how we do that. And so I think there still is a lot of work to be done in terms of, what would actually create a big difference and how we balance housing with all the other things that we attach to housing building, like how we balance the extra labor requirements and the environmental concerns and transit access and everything else that we wrap up into our housing policy.
Emilia, thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
And that's all for today here on CityCast DC. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our morning newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye.